What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast episode. Oh, fuck. What episode?
183.
Is it 183? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. You're asking. See,
You know what? Fuck it. We'll keep it. We'll keep it in. We're keeping it in.
I got it, because I got it.
What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 183. I'm your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hello. I usually am the one who has to ask Tavin what episode it is, or let him say it. But sometimes this works.
Well, normally I get to look at the doc for time codes, but we've passed that responsibility on to you, and so now you get to look at it. So now you do know. There you go.
I didn't even know that.
Bada bing, bada boom. You know, I did.
It is on there.
I did it. Yeah, it's at the top of the episode. How did you know?
Because I remember I remember.
Does it say 183 at the top, or does it say 182?
182. But
Okay,
I just
we
remember
gotta
the
update.
conversation we had last week
Yeah.
of which episode it was. And see, once I get that little piece of information in there, it sticks there.
Yeah, we'll see how good that works next week.
We are
Anyways,
going to, yeah.
Connor, how's your week been?
This is being filmed. My week was good. Sometimes you forget when you record some of these things and they aren't released until later. This one's released tomorrow. So my last week was good. Hopefully this new one's better. I'm always hoping that.
No. Oh, okay. You're always hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Got you. You made it sound like something bad happened.
Right? Oh, no, nothing bad really happened.
Hey,
Yeah,
there we
so
go.
good.
You know, positive input here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, of course, the Two Penny Gamescast. Each week, me and Connor come to you, and we give you the new news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, 2 pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. This week, we are going to do things a little bit differently. Normally, we would open the show with any type of real serious news that impacts developers. We love talking about video games as much as the next guy. We're going to talk about at least 5 great games that were shown at the Xbox Developer Direct, Developer_Direct, rather, this last week, which there is a reaction that you can go and watch on youtube.com/@2pennygames. But there was also a huge amount of layoffs within the last week as well. And instead of just sitting here and reading off, the 17,000th IGN article talking about whatever layoffs happened, or trying to lump them all, lump it up every week and just rehash the same conversation week to week. This is happening so much that, unfortunately, this is now going to be a weekly segment where we give you a layoff head count of how many people have been lost during the week and what the total number is for throughout the year. I'm going to go through the whole list this week, this being the first time that we've done this, but every week after it'll just be the new numbers that have gone through and so forth. Sucks that we have to do it. I hate that, we just have to kind of be this kind of numb to it, but we only have so much time on this show, and we can't just repeat the same conversation week to week. Just know that, there's a great video that we put out last week. We broke out the segment where we talked about, was it the Discord layoffs last week that we talked about?
Yes, it was the Kickstarter. And the Lost Boys.
Yeah. And we broke out a segment of that. Those were our opinions. Those are still our opinions. And we really, really fully recommend everybody go and watch that breakout episode to get the full scope of how we feel about these things. But yeah, so near the end of the episode, we're going to have the layoff headcount segment where we'll give you the update on that. And then we're going to talk about the rest of the news for the rest of the week. You can find the show every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Connor, let's go ahead and get into the news, my friend. Let's start off. Let's start with the fun and games this week, man. I'm tired. I'm feeling bummed out. All right. We did a lot of research to build up to the layoff headcount segment that we're going to do later. So I want to talk about some good stuff. So we're going to talk about my first penny of the day, our first topic of the day, the Xbox Developer_Direct 2024. They advertised it as 4 games being shown off and showcased at this Direct, being those 4 being, of course, Machine Games, Indiana Jones, and what we then learned as to be the Great Circle is the subtitle for that. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
We'll talk about that in a little while.
Aura History Untold Avowed, and what's the fourth one I'm missing?
Visions of Man.
Nope, that was the surprise one that came out. The fourth one that I'm missing is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, of course. And then, as you said, Square Enix popped out as a surprise with Visions of Mana showing off, new gameplay and design focus and all that. There is a full reaction on the channel right now. Me and Phil reacted to the whole developer_direct. We thought it was great. And we really do recommend that you go and watch that reaction video because it was a really great time watching that and reacting to those games. To kind of break it down here, I thought this developer_direct was fantastic. This has become one of my favorite versions of video game showcases that are out there. And, it's a highlight for me now that we've done it twice. Last year, I thought it was great. The games were kind of whatever last year, but this year I thought all of the games were awesome. But I just love getting the deep dive into these games, getting the breakdown of all the different elements in each department of each development studio and how all of these elements come together and join together to become this beautiful work of art. I love that it gives the developers a chance to show off some personality. I have such a better feeling and understanding of Xbox first party studios after these two developer directs than I do for any other stable of studios. Like the Nintendo kind of conglomerates all into one, PlayStation, you get a little bit of identity from some of the bigger dogs or something, but then a lot of the smaller ones kind of fall to the wayside, and you don't always know what Team Ninja's doing, or who those people are. But the superstar studios, Insomniac, Naughty Dog, Santa Monica, obviously those guys we know very well. Sucker Punch, I think we know pretty well, and so forth. But this one, I get to look at them, see that they're having a good time making this game, creating together, and so forth, and it's really nice. Connor, what did you think?
Oh, I loved this showcase.
Did you?
Now, full transparency, I didn't watch the showcase. I didn't watch it live, like the privileged Tavin and Phil of the Two Penny Gamescast, and that is a short a sight on a failure on my part. But I'm like the layman this week. I just look at the games themselves and don't care about all the other hubbubaloo, which most people don't get. So you have that perspective from Tavin, as is always good, and then you have mine of just seeing the games on their own, judging them just based off how they're presented and how they look from the little gameplay splices that we get from this direct. And the games themselves, very good. Even the one that is a type of game that's outside of my purview and everyone else on the show, is the podcast as well. Strategy sim games with Aura, History Untold. Even that looked interesting with because one of the big things I know about those kinds of games is the win condition. That's what you're always striving to. And we'll get into that a little bit differently, but they have some nice little twists on that while also just looking like a very expansive sim strategy game, which, they all look expansive to me, but this one seems to be well received as all the other ones that come before it. Obviously, Senua's, Hellblade, it looks amazing. I mean, they've up until this point, we've really only seen a lot of just visuals. This is the first time we're getting, more of the in-depth conversation that Tavin was privy to, not me. So from my perspective, I was seeing a lot of the pretty flashiness that this game's been setting itself up to have. Avowed also showed itself, and that's the game I had been looking forward to.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and break down and get into it and jump into the titles here. So we started with Avowed, which I think was a really, really good showing, probably the best showing that we've seen from this game yet. Deepest dive into combat and gameplay and sort of how the narrative dialogue choices work in this game. I think as a game, it looks fantastic. I don't like the art style for this game. It just doesn't look, it looks cheap to me. The game is not cheap, but it looks cheap. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But what I was seeing in combat, what I was seeing in gameplay, dual wielding wands, using spells, quick switching to a sword and all that looked really, really fun and engaging. And so I'm excited to do all of that stuff. The dialogue I thought was fine. I think they showed off a pretty weak example of what this dialogue can be and do. The narrative choices the dialogue choices that they were doing in the narrative adventure that they showed us. They only showed us one route, which was weird because they were advertising how dialogue can go down a bunch of different routes, and you can have like a bunch of different scenarios happen depending on your choices. But they only showed us one route, and they didn't even show us like the results of that route, which was odd. But this is Obsidian, makers of Fallout New Vegas, of Grounded, of Pentiment, of what's that other one they did? Outer Worlds. I liked Outer Worlds. I didn't play a lot of it, but I liked what I did play.
Same here.
And so I'm just excited to jump in and check this out and see what their take on a new version of an Elder Scrolls kind of looks like. I think it separates itself in identity from Elder Scrolls in a lot of really important ways. And it looks like an Obsidian game.
Yeah, the thing about Obsidian is they made what I consider to be the best Fallout game, Fallout New Vegas. And so they have a proven track record of taking what Bethesda has established itself as being, with Elder Scrolls and Fallout in this case, and making it better with their own spin on it. I think they, like we said, Outer Worlds was fun, but I felt like it really lacked that interesting identity that really made me want to attach myself to it. It just kind of felt like generic sci-fi world with some, generic-looking alien species and some just, Fallout kind of style inspirations. It seemed like it really just didn't get its own identity. This one seems to have more of one. There's an art piece that was released for it. I'm hoping it's going to be the box art because it looks super sick.
Oh, that looks
really,
dope
really
as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, so that gives me some hope to see what this game has to provide because admittedly, when I first heard that it was shown at the showcase, my first impressions I was hearing from other people was that it was one of the weaker showings of the show, how it looked like the combat was bland and boring. And
who are you talking to?
I just seeing people online share their opinions. No one in particular. I didn't talk with anybody. I was just viewing them criticize that.
I mean, of the ones shown, it probably was the weakest of the bunch, but it by no means does it look boring or bland. It looks good.
Yeah, and which is when I actually started looking up some gameplay. Some of the things made sense, like how the conversations, the dialogue has been going. It was like, it seems like it's, still that bygone era of Elder Scrolls kind of, giving you, they're just kind of throwing you information your way, and you don't really feel like invested in the world.
The camera zooms in on the NPC, you get locked into it.
And this is that's only a small moment that we saw of that kind of interaction. Maybe we'll see better ones, but the combat was really cool. The way I thought the combat was dope. Things. Yeah, it is. Yeah. When I first heard of this game, you saw like a guy in the cinematic trailer hold up two hands full of magic, getting ready to do a magic blast. And as we kind of heard some more things, it was like, you can be a spell sword, you can use two-handed weapons, magic, of course. But then when they introduced that you can, do a lot of this combined in. Like, for example, pistols, flintlock pistols.
Didn't even know those were in the game.
That. No, not at all. And the real big thing was being able to swap with, I don't know, they didn't specify how many, 4 different loadouts, presets of...
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was 4, or like the number?
I thought you could just switch to an item.
No, it seems like you have loadouts of different, like, weapon combinations.
I'd have to go back and listen to it to exactly what that did. Fall 2024, no hard date. Kind of disappointing, but at the same time, like, take your time and not mad at that. At least we have a window now.
Yeah.
At least we know it's coming along. Moving right along to Ninja Theory's Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. This was, again, another strong showing for this game. This game continues to look really good and really quality. It's getting a little samey in the marketing. I feel like I'm seeing the same thing again and again and again. Now, granted, that has to do with the genre of the game, being the narrative, third person over the shoulder type thing. And it's really the experience of playing the game that is really going to make the hard difference. But this game looks fucking gorgeous. God damn, this game looks good. Just beautiful environments, beautiful character models, beautiful animations, all of that. Looks really, really good. They did a deep dive into music and how the music was crafted. All of that was fascinating. They're saying now the binaural audio is not just the voices that Senua is hearing, but it now applies to as much of the rest of the sound design as they can apply it to. So that'll be combat, that'll be music, that'll be just environmental sounds and so forth, which is really, really cool that they, that was the big standout of the first game was the binaural audio that you would hear as the voices would whisper past you and so forth, and to have that return, of course. But to now, take that technology even further and implement it even deeper into the systems, I think are going to be really good. This game just looks like it's going to have a really good story. It was interesting that you didn't see it, but they advertised it as being a shorter experience, which is interesting. Not shorter than the first game, but just shorter in comparison to where, we have all these inflated run times from all these other games and so forth. My big criticism of The Last of Us Part 2, even though I think that game is amazing and there's a complete masterpiece of a game, is that it's pretty long, and I would probably prefer it to be a little shorter. But, for them to be out here and being like, we're providing a shorter, really thrilling ride and so forth. Like, the game looks good. I think the combat looks simple, but it's very cinematic and
brutal,
intense. Yeah, brutal. And the animations are so detailed that it's just like, oh fuck, man. I want to see where that goes. The only thing, my biggest hang up about it is that I have not played the first one, and I kind of feel like I need to.
Yeah, I think the most significant, because you have made the point that it's all felt samey at this point, because we've gotten 3 different showcases, maybe 4, of just seeing Senua walk, and sometimes she fights.
Yeah, this is the third, or I think this is the third, or I think this is the 4th big showing.
Yeah, the most impactful was by far the fight against the giant. That was some
big baby,
some crazy fucking stuff when it was first shown. I was like, what the hell is that goddamn
Game
thing?
Awards 21.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
but besides that, the thing we've been waiting for forever is a release date, because they just kept showing it over and over, which is fine, but it has to lead somewhere, and it never really did. They just wanted to show it.
This game was announced in 2019 with the Xbox Series X reveal. At the Game Awards, and so like the fact that it's taken 5 years to come along. I mean, granted, like understandable. I want the game to be good, and it looks fantastic. But it's time.
It is,
yeah.
And thankfully we finally got that release date, which, as you were saying, I think I'm certainly going to jump into the first game before it comes out in May, because there's no way you can play this game and not, like, with such a narrative focused experience, and have the first game not be like one of the main impacting factors on how you digest this new one.
Yeah,
I think we'll have to be jumping into that. And it's only 8 hours too.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm as of right now, I do not plan on playing it, but just because I want to play the first one first, and I don't see how I can make time for that right now. But yeah, May 21st, 2024. That's a good date.
Yeah,
it's kind of an empty area right now. It's not that May has not been filled out too deeply in terms of other releases. So I think that's a good date for this game. I think it'll get the amount of shine and a good look that it should get. And I'm excited to see what people think about it, especially because it's in my Fantasy Critic. But I'm hoping for the best for this. This developer direct really just showed me that Xbox has the stuff. They've been cooking for a long time, and now it's time to feast. And I think all 4 I think we're in for a really good year from Xbox here. And then we jump into surprise guest Square Enix with Visions of Mana. And
funny little inclusion right there.
This game looks awesome.
Yeah,
looks fun. Kitty, pretty simple. But it looks like a blast. It looks like a nice, like, family-friendly, kids-first RPG, but still has a level of depth that you're not going to see in other, like, childlike adventures and so forth. So, it looks great. The art style is beautiful. The combat looks fun, and I just like the chibiness of the world and so forth. It looks like a good time.
Yeah, we haven't played the Mana games. I've always been interested in them, but hadn't touched them.
Yeah.
So as someone looking at this from fresh eyes, points you mentioned, because to my understanding, the older games are more of the traditional action.
They're turn-based.
Yeah, turn-based combat system. But this one's going for the more action adventure. Yeah, action RPG. Kind of the gameplay, juggling people into the air and then hitting them, doing a little bit of air dashes, reminded me of Devil May Cry. Yeah. But you can really fill that in with any third-person, high-octane action adventure game.
Well, it's quite a bit slower than that. It still clearly is staying true to its RPG roots and so forth. I think this looks mechanically how the game looks to feel. Of course, I won't know until I actually get my hands on sticks. But how it looks to feel is that it looks way better than what Final Fantasy 16 did last year. I criticized that game heavily just on game feel. It didn't feel good to play that game. This does not look that way. Like when we're jumping around, when we're fighting things, when we're knocking enemies up into the air and so forth, it feels like your hits actually have impact. And they're keeping it varied with a bunch of like spell casting and so forth. There's a lot of variety in your attacks and so forth. So I'm excited to like develop a build or whatever and just kind of explore the world. Will I like play a lot of this game? I don't know, but I certainly want to give it a try.
Yeah, I'll see how the game is received to possibly jump into it. I know it's a Phil pick now.
No, that's me.
That one? No, it's you.
That's me. Yeah. No, Phil didn't grab anything from this developer direct because he didn't put in the money. Oh. We did, and boy, oh boy, did you put a lot of money in. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. I'm trying to find the estimated just summer 2024 release date. So I don't know, July.
It really could be
kind of feels right sometime in there. Nice little RPG for us. But yeah, super adorable, super cute. I'm into it. I want to check it out. Moving on now to the game that is in the genre that we all have the least amount of experience in is are we in it? Is this it?
We are. That's it.
Okay, right here. Aura History Untold is a 4X strategy sim game. The likeness of your civilizations and so forth. I have zero experience with this genre, so I have no idea how it compares and how it looks in comparison to games like Civ and others like it. But what I saw here looked cool. If it comes out in a good time, I'm willing to load up Game Pass and give it a spin and try it out. I've yet to meet a genre of video game that I don't like, and I can't imagine that this would be one of them that I wouldn't like. It's just I have no experience with it. I've never played one before. So
the closest you would have experience to with these kinds of games is one that I know you enjoy quite a lot, to the point where you've almost consistently played it for a while now. Fallout Shelter. It's kind of like that. So,
no, it's not. Shut the fuck up. It's nothing like that.
It's management. You're getting resources.
You're being an idiot. Shut the fuck up. What did you think of the game?
Once again, we don't play these games.
Yeah.
But visually, it looks great. I feel like one of the big pluses of these kinds of games when you're building your civilization is you want it to look nice.
Yeah.
So art style goes a long way. I think it's one of the core pillars of these kinds of games outside of the complex systems.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not aware. Is there a multiplayer version of this game going to be available? Because I know, I
would imagine so.
Yeah, because I know those games kind of have a
I'd
very
be surprised
strong
if they
multiplayer
did.
Community.
I'm not for sure, but yeah, I would be shocked if they didn't. I'll say they show pick your character, pick your
historical figure,
your historical figure, your background, and all this, and then they show off crafting and they show off city building and all these things. These look deep, but they don't look intimidating. It clearly looks like, okay, this is a lot of systems. I'm going to have to wrap my head around this. But it doesn't look like it'll scare me away, which I think is a benefit to the game. It looks mostly looks approachable. You know what I mean?
No,
it doesn't look like, oh God, I have no idea what's going on screen right now, which can happen very easily in these types of games. It does look like there's a lot happening, especially when they show the menus like that. There's a lot on screen at one time. But it looks like it looks organized in a way and designed well enough in a way to where it all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and you're getting into the crazy mech stuff. That's always been weird to have Alexander the Great helming your armies and then just having giant mech. I'm like,
hell yeah.
He's
with
immortal.
History untold, man.
That is true.
Untold. Untell that history. You know what I'm saying? But no, I'm into it. Just the release year of 2024. I have a sneaking suspicion all the games are gonna hit this year. The only one that I'm like, maybe we'll see is Indiana Jones, which we're gonna get into. But all the games from last year's developer _direct came out within that calendar year. Obviously, Hi-Fi Rush was a surprise release. No surprise release this time around, and I don't think they should. But everything looks close to being done. We've known about Avowed for a while. We've known about Senua for a while. Time for those games to come. We don't have a date for Avowed yet, but I imagine we will soon. And Aura, I think, is probably going to come this year. It looks fully developed, and the preview and their showings of it look good. So I can't imagine that it needs that much more time in the oven. I mean, when they start showing off, crafting systems as one of the like highlights of their game and so forth, it's like, oh, okay, y'all should be pretty close done then.
Yeah, I'm taking. I'm believing all of these games are coming out this year. I'm going with their original way they do these, which is to announce them, and then that generates hype, and then they'll come out later this year. And we still haven't gotten a large number of releases, especially for, like, you talked about May.
I will say they specified fall 2024 for this as well.
See, it seems like they're all lining up for that time frame.
Yeah,
for the most part.
That fall thing. So I think Xbox is in for a strong year this year. And then, Connor, let's get into it. The big boy, the reason we all tuned in the first place, Machine Games, Indiana Jones, and The Great Circle. Off rip. This is a terrible name.
It's bad.
That is an awful fucking name for a video game.
For those of you that live under a rock, for the Indiana Jones film franchise, you have Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Temple of Dune, the third one. What the fuck?
The Last Crusade.
The Last Crusade. But then even with the bad Indiana Jones, you have Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Badass name.
Yeah, exactly. And The Dial of Destiny. The weaker out of all of those, but still has that nice,
still
nice.
Ring to it. You're like, yeah, Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah, well, Temple of Doom is kind of weak in my opinion, but
that's like pulpy. And I feel like with Indiana Jones, that really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It has that pulp element to it.
But Indiana Jones and the Great Circle feels like, oh, this is a knockoff.
Yeah.
Like in title. Now, the game looks awesome.
Yeah.
The game looks phenomenal. It looks like the right tone, the right style. Surprisingly, I love that it's first person.
More than that, I love that it's first person and switches to third person in certain circumstances.
Yeah,
I think it's a really interesting way to go about making this kind of game.
Yeah, when you go to swing off of something with your whip or climb up a wall or something, it'll switch to third, so you can see Indy do the cool action thing. But for the most part, it's probably 85, maybe 90% in first person. And shockingly, that is so the right call. I think in a post Tomb Raider, in a post Uncharted world, it's very hard for Indiana Jones to come with his own identity in the game's sphere, like
Which is funny because those games that we just listed
are
inspired by that.
Inspired by Indiana Jones, right? Uncharted damn near rips off everything Indiana did, at least in the first 3 games. And so to get here and be like, all right, Indiana, how are you going to come with your own identity? To be in first person, to have the style that it is. I love that, you're not popping off with your 6-shooter all the time. The gun, like the revolver is a option, is a choice, but you only have, it looks to be more limited. The whip being dynamic in the way it is, using it to distract enemies, using it to knock them off their feet, using it to traverse. All of that looks awesome. The brawler combat in it, in the first person, like Indiana Jones is a brawler, and he's not like a big action dude. When he gets hit, it hurts him. And he's not like Nathan Drake, where he's just taking bullets and punches like they're nothing. I love their take here where they're like, hey, no, let's slow combat down. Let's make every hit have impact, but still keep with that pulp action tone. It looks great. I think they found a perfect balance. And coming from Machine Games with the lineage of the latest iteration of the Wolfenstein games, you can see that DNA transfer over into this one clearly. So Machine Games is keeping their identity as a studio. They learn from their lessons from the Wolfenstein games, and they get to experiment with new things in an IP that everybody loves. This seems to be a perfect formula for success here.
And it's very strange because similar to Avowed, I heard some negative things about it, way less so with Indiana Jones, more tepidness than actual criticisms. Well,
yeah.
No, they're definitely criticisms, but it wasn't so dreary, like acting like the game's going to be a failure or suck out the gate. But people were complaining that they're doing the mixture of third person and first person, and primarily were upset that it was first person and not third person, which kind of in a time where people are kind of saying, well, we want new interesting games that
people
are more
don't
unique.
know what they want.
No, but that's to a degree. People know nowadays games have been feeling kind of samey very often, especially in certain genres, and so there's kind of a desire to do something new and interesting. And here it is doing it, but then you still had people come out and say, well, I don't like how that is,
People don't know what they want, Like, this so could have easily just been a cheap Uncharted clone, and I love that it's not. I I come on, look at this, like hopping from one plane to another. We're still getting the cool action set pieces. This is like fucking top 3 craziest things Indiana Jones has ever done. It looks good. The character model looks good. I love that they're leaning into the Harrison Ford. They're not giving us a different take on the character. They're like, nah, Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. Let's get Troy Baker in here, have him do his Harrison Ford impression, and it looks fantastic. Graphically, it looks beautiful. It's got a great style. Again, my only detraction for this game so far is this fucking terrible ass name. It's so bad. It just feels like kids' cartoon. Like, all right, kids, now Indy's gonna teach you about the Great Circle. Let's all sit down and listen to it. Like, that doesn't feel right.
And I'll make one last point. It was the one that was said. I think I saw it like 10 times of people talking about the moment in the trailer where you're punching the Nazi guy and it's synced up to the dun dun dun. Wait, what the fuck part was it?
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah,
Dun, dun, dun.
like punch, punch, punch.
Yeah.
Song note, song note, song note. That was a good trailer.
It's
Very
a good trailer, man. It's a really good trailer.
Yeah.
Set to be released this year. They just gave the year of 2024. No season on this one. I think, honestly, this one, you didn't need to put a season on it. You didn't need to put a hard date on it. Let's wait for Summer Games Fest. Let's wait for sometime in the summer to give us a late October, November release date, somewhere around there. Maybe if we're getting really antsy, maybe in September.
I'll take it. I just want it to come out this year because it's on my Fantasy Critic. I bought it for a large sum.
A large sum, Connor.
I better see some payback here.
I would hope so. But no, I'm very, very excited. Look, when he whips a dude, he whips the hand to make him drop his gun, and he like the dude drops it and goes, ow, motherfucker. Like, when have you ever seen this animation in a video game before? That's cool, man. That's Indiana Jones right there. Yeah, I'm very, very excited for it, and I can't wait to play it.
And it's good to put that at the end. It's a good bookend because that's what people were waiting for.
Yeah,
that was what we got as being the big game to be revealed, and it revealed.
It did indeed. So, Connor, let's move on to our second topic of the day. Your first penny of the day. Something's going on over there with the Alan Wake 2 guys, Remedy Studios, and all that. So, let's jump on over there. I'm sorry, I'm transitioning a bunch of different elements all at one time here. Bada boom. There we go. Here we go. Are you ready? You're still taking time codes.
I'm good.
You're taking a long time.
Because I changed it because then it got delayed. And I was like,
All right. Okay, here we go. Take it away, my friend.
Yes, we have an IGN article here from Ryan Dinsdale. Alan Wake 2 developer Remedy says Take-Two trademark dispute was resolved amicably in 2023. There is an update as of January 18th, 2024. Remedy Entertainment has reached out to IGN to clarify the trademark dispute between it and Grand Theft Auto owner Take-Two Interactive, insisting, quote, there is nothing to see here, end quote. Take-Two's opposition of the logo rebranding, which bears similarities to GTA 6 developer Rockstar Games' own logo, was just an, quote, initial formality, the developer said. There is nothing to see here. This was a discussion between our teams that was resolved entirely and amicably late last year, the developer told IGN. Unfortunately, it took a little longer to complete than we had hoped to do due to some holiday scheduling. The legal filing was simply an initial formality, and Remedy and Take-Two continued to work together in partnership.
So we're reading the update. The initial story was that Take-Two files a lawsuit for a trademark dispute with the logo for Remedy Studios. It looks too much like the Rockstar symbol, in their opinion. And people were like, "What the hell? Y'all are working on a Max Payne remake together. What is going on here?" And yeah, they're basically just saying, "Yeah, it's a formality. They had to do it for legal reasons or whatever. It's fine. There's nothing to see here. Nothing's gonna happen with this." And yeah, I think it's kind of ridiculous. Like what you're gonna have ownership over the letter R, Rockstar.
The problem is it's not out of the realm of possibility. Obviously, this isn't happening, but you can find some pretty ridiculous lawsuits over the smallest of dumbest things.
Rockstar's legal team don't play around.
And this seemed when it was being set up for another one of those instances of obviously Remedy's not a small studio, but they're small in comparison to Rockstar.
Oh, by far.
And Take-Two Interactive.
Yeah.
And so it was starting to come out as a story of just them just swinging their dick around because they're on a power trip because they're the GTA creators. So it's good that it was resolved amicably, but it's a very strange story to cover in general because, what legal precedent would be is set in place to make this necessary. I don't know. I don't fucking know. I guess they were.
It's one of those things you got to go after everybody because then you can't let anybody through type thing. Because if it's like, oh well, if someone came through and actually did have a problem with it or whatever, and it actually was worth the dispute, and they hadn't gone after Remedy here, it could be used against them. Like, well, you didn't go after Remedy, and they have a similar logo too, or something like that. So it's just a thing to kind of like cover all bases type scenario. It's legal teams. Meanwhile, the development team and the marketing team are like, buddy. And they're like, I don't know what's going on over there, but it's fine, whatever.
As far as like industry news, this is better than layoffs. So I'll
it's weird. It's funny. It's humorous. Rockstar with their hard R's over there, man. You gotta be hard with the R's over there.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Moving on, topic number 3, my second penny of the day. Let's talk about some Witcher 4, some Cyberpunk 2077, and just general what is this developer called? CD Projekt Red. CD Projekt Red.
Those guys
here. Witcher 4 could enter production this year. Multiplayer being considered for Cyberpunk 2. This is a VGC article by Tom Ivan. CD Projekt has provided an update on the next mainline Witcher game and its Cyberpunk 2077 sequel. Joint CEO Adam Badowski told Reuters the company hopes to enter the production phase of The Witcher 4, which is codenamed Polaris, this year. The company said in March 2022 that its next Witcher game would kick off, quote, a new saga for the franchise, which has sold over 75 million copies since launching in 2007. It also revealed that the open world title was being built with the Epic Games Unreal Engine rather than its proprietary Red engine, which powered previous Witcher games and Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt confirmed last May that it had wrapped up its research phase on the game, which will be the first part of a new trilogy and progressed to the pre-production phase. It said last November that almost 330 developers were working on the project, making it CD Projekt's biggest development team, having overtaken Cyberpunk's. Quote, we'd like to have around 400 people working on the project by the middle of the year, Badowski told Reuters, which reports that analysts expect the game to be released in 2026 or 2027. And then let's pause right there. There's more to this story, but let's pause right there. Let's handle Witcher first.
Yeah.
Witcher 4, Witcher Polaris, whatever this is, new trilogy happening. You would assume this is going to continue the legacy of Ciri. Maybe Geralt is like a side character or something, but retiring Geralt as a playable character and focusing on a new one. I would hope Ciri is at the center of this game. I would rather her over a new character or a fresh character. Now, maybe they would want to explore the world of The Witcher more and have their own personal spin on it. Ciri is a character from the books, but they've done so much development that it's more or less their character now than it is from the books and so forth. I mean, granted, you do have five, 6 books and 2-3 seasons of a TV show centered around her, but when you think of Ciri, you think of her in The Witcher 3 and all the great character development that happens for her in that game, where they leave her off if you choose the right ending. But of course you choose the right ending. What are you, a fucking monster? Making her the Empress? What is wrong with you?
She's in line for it.
She wants to be a Witcher.
She
does? Wants to be an adventurer.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah,
which is why it would make sense for her to be in this next game, because people want the Witcher core, the core of what a Witcher is.
I'm willing to bet 90% of players got the ending where she becomes a Witcher.
Probably.
Yeah.
But they really just like telling us these things really, really far out. I mean,
that's where they're at right now,
yeah.
Man. Is just like, tell us everything in advance. Tell it let's not have any secrets, held right now. And I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with having select games being announced really early. I don't think a Senua Saga Hellblade 2 needs to be announced 5 years in advance. But a game like a Witcher, a CD Projekt Red game, yeah, you can announce that hella early. That's fine. I like to have things to look forward to. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And have journeys that I've yet to explore, far away and so forth. So yeah, I'm excited for the next Witcher title. I am, of course, trepidatious about it after the Cyberpunk 2077 launch, but they seem to have made good on that and repaired that game quite well, and it's now basically the game that it should have been to begin with. But it was in people's top 10s last year with Phantom Liberty plus the 2.0 update. People were really, really happy with where Cyberpunk 2077 has finally evolved to. I think they learned their lesson. I think they're more than willing to take the right amount of time, not worry about developing for as many different SKUs this time around, and they're definitely not going to take the same risks that they took in the launch of 77.
That'd be insanity. I mean, that was one of the biggest gaming fumbles
of
all time.
And I still think that's the worst launch I've ever witnessed. Like, that was bad.
It was pretty bad.
That was really bad. Working in the Epic Games Unreal Engine, I think that's a good call. Mm-hmm. Their Red engine is pretty old and, wasn't the best engine to begin with.
Specifically for combat. Yeah. I remember in Witcher 3, even with the remastered version of that game that came out not too long ago, it's better, but it's held back by
and that's a better version of it. You go back and play Witcher 2, and you're like, oof. This game's barely held together. Like, you can see the duct tape around that game. It's a great game. It's a fantastic game, but you can see the duct tape around it to kind of get it to work. There was a video essay that I watched on it, and he described the game as burnt.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
In the oven a bit too long, but not long enough.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. But yeah, Witcher 3 is. I think Witcher 3 is aging fine. I think it's fine. Is the combat not great? Yeah, but what action RPG combat is great? Like, that's a hard line to walk. More often than not, they're not great, especially in that era. You can look back now at like your Final Fantasy VII remakes and so forth and be like, oh, that combat's excellent. But like, 2015. It was almost a decade ago that we had that. And I think obviously Cyberpunk was a huge undertaking for them, and it didn't work out. So I think the new technology is going to be pretty good for them. Moving on to the rest of the topic here, a Cyberpunk 2077 sequel codenamed Projekt Orion is currently in the conceptual design phase at CD Projekt's North America studios. Badowski said the company expects to have 80 people working on the game by the end of the year. Joint CEO Mikhail Nowakowski also said CD Projekt was considering including multiplayer elements in the sequel. The company's Cyberpunk 2077 follow-up was originally intended to be a standalone AAA Cyberpunk multiplayer game, but the project was scrapped following the original game's troubled release. Quote, given our new, more systematic and agile approach, instead of primarily focusing on one big online experience or game, we are focusing on bringing online into all of our franchises one day. Former CEO Adam Kaczynski, who is now serving as the company's chief strategy officer, said in March of 2021. Okay, cool.
About the multiplayer bit, I think the better way they could go about doing it is, rather than doing a whole big multiplayer mode, if that's really what they're, heavily considering, is doing co-op. Because I think that with the next Cyberpunk game, they came back and they fixed 2077. But in addition to the fact that their engine was kind of outdated and now they're going to a new one, I think they have a chance to really do the ideal Cyberpunk right out the gate, doing things that other studios, hadn't really done up until that point. I think that should be their main focus rather than incorporating a major multiplayer mode into it. And if they did want to go that route in the initial release, I think a co-op is the more safer bet. And also more interesting one. Baldur's Gate 3 had a really, really nice co-op system where you're going through a world that ideally shouldn't have one, but it does, and it plays out well. And so I think, focusing just on that, you're with your friends in Night City or wherever they decide to make the next game take place, and you're just, going around causing mischief with a really cool combat system and RPG mechanics. I think that'd be a better route, especially with the roots of Cyberpunk being a tabletop game where you're playing with a bunch of other friends. I feel like if you refer back to that, you can have some cool systems to play around with. So I think any kind of massive multiplayer undertaking should, as they were originally planning with the Cyberpunk 2077, should come sometime after the main game is released. But ultimately, this is so far out, this is probably just an idea they throw out, and whether they'll stick to it or not will be hammered out in the writer's room, and like I said, the conceptual design phase.
I mean, we're so far out from that title that they should be taking notes from what Larian did with Baldur's Gate 3. There's no reason to not be taking notes with what's going on there. Now, as a studio, I would strongly say, hey, can y'all handle that? You barely got the last one out, and it was a mess. So I think y'all need a couple more wins under your belt before we start doing anything as ambitious as that. But by the time we get a Witcher game or two out, by the time a Cyberpunk sequel happens, of course they said they're focused on a more agile approach to it, and they're gonna have different teams doing different things and so forth. We had God, what was that studio we covered where they actually last year they had a good year? They actually hired more people and grew because they diversified their portfolio and didn't focus on one giant game.
Fuck. It was it was a smaller studio.
It was a smaller
like
studio, and
studio.
they're more known for being a support studio and helping out other games. But they put out something, and I forget what it was. Something like that. I think. Let's see if it works on the bigger scale. CB Projekt Red is a bigger scale studio, so let's see if it works. Of course, we have questions about the work culture that goes there. A bunch of crunch happened for Cyberpunk 2077, and it was a mess of a launch and so forth. So let's hope that they've adjusted and figured that out, and took steps to adapt to be a better example of game development in 2024 and beyond. Now, for multiplayer, yeah, you can kind of imagine how that would work in the world of Cyberpunk, right? Like, like the gameplay is actiony enough to where, like, a buddy in that would be kind of cool. I don't think they should. I mean, you could potentially do some PvP, maybe like some world invasion stuff, a la some From Software type things, alongside of having your co-op partners helping you out and so forth. And then hopefully, like, I don't love the way Baldur's Gate handles co-op, but I can't deny that it's a really good example of how to do it. I wish there was a way to assign certain quest lines to certain players in that game. And if CD Projekt Red could do that, like, hey, whoever starts this quest is the person who dictates dialogue and choices that happen throughout it, and so forth, and we figure out how to choose who gets to do what, and things like that. It's really cool that in Baldur's Gate 3, we as players can romance different characters and so forth and play that out. But it is also really annoying when my co-op partner walks into a room before I do, and suddenly they're the ones making the big giant choices for a character's quest line that I should be the one making because I'm the one who's close to that character. So like just a bit of balance, but I can't deny that of how impressive that game is, and you're far enough away from that game development wise that you should be able to take notes and be like, okay, how do we implement that? How do we put our own spin on it? How do we improve it? What are the drawbacks? What are the things that are groundbreaking and awesome? Let's take notes and figure it out.
And one thing that I would like to see from this new Cyberpunk game, which could include itself into the multiplayer format that they're considering, and this is coming from a guy who has not played the tabletop or been super invested in all of the lore bits of Cyberpunk, but something that, in addition to cybernetic augmentations they have, is the other, I guess you can call it faction, is there's like studies that are done in mutations. And so there's factions of people that are mutants. They have extra limbs, they have special features that are differentiated by biology. Game? No, it's not in the game. It's in the tabletop in Cyberpunk world that was never explored in 2077. And that's a whole other avenue they can go down, not only for powers, but also for the multiplayer. I mean, turf wars are a pretty big thing. Gang wars and different factions like that are prevalent in Cyberpunk, and so having that kind of setting in just a hollowed out an area that's taken away from the main area, like a traditional multiplayer game. If they were going to go that large scale format, that's a cool way they can play around with it, and also include that in the base game. So, as far as multiplayer goes, Cyberpunk is made for it. They just have to hammer out exactly what would be best for it. Because just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it.
I agree, 100%. Connor, let's move right along to our fourth and final topic of the day, which will lead us into our layoff head count here. You grabbed an interesting article from VGC over here, so go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Yes, we got the VGC article from Tom Ivan, one of the many reporters that we draw on who just always does a good job. Games industry leader predicts 2024 will be the year of closures. Game developer Farhan Noor, who has been tracking job cuts dating back to the start of 2023 on videogameslayoffs.com, estimates that around 10,500 games industry employees were laid off last year. And less than a month into 2024, some 3,000 planned job cuts are already thought to have been confirmed. Speaking to GamesIndustry.biz anonymously, senior industry figures warned that more tough times are in store for the market due to continued high interest rates, an overabundance of new releases, and cautious investors. Quote, if 2023 was the year of layoffs, 2024 will be the year of closures, according to one CEO of a public company. Not just developers, but publishers, media service companies. There are just too many unprofitable businesses in video games, they added. We're looking at up to 2 years of pain. One publisher boss said, quote, too many games were greenlit in 2020 and 2021. We need to get to pre-pandemic levels in terms of the release schedule, and that's probably going to take 2 years. You can already see publishers signing fewer games. That's happening everywhere. The stores are saturated, not just Steam, and the games just aren't delivering the levels they were. The latest GDC State of the Games Industry survey found that around a third of developers were impacted by layoffs at their workplace over the 12 months ended in October 2023. Asked how concerned they were about layoffs over the following 12 months to October 2024, 14% of 3,000 plus respondents said they were very concerned, 16% said they were somewhat concerned, and 26% said they were slightly concerned. Some of those surveyed also provided anonymous feedback, including their thoughts on the rise of layoffs across the industry. Unfortunately, this is not far-fetched. With how many bodies were laid off last year, it only makes sense that if they're getting to that point, some studios are going to consider closing down. There was a recent story that dropped, and this is not confirmed at all, but there is some talks that the Gothic and Elix game studio, Piranha Bytes, is possibly closing. The CEO says that it's a difficult situation, but to not write them off yet. And so it really paints an even bleaker outcome for what the games industry is going to be like. I do think the pandemic really screwed up how games are made, because when that happens, you had to, usually games are made in an office, and now all of a sudden it was thrust into the remote workplace, and there was kind of an adjustment that was needed to get used to that new workplace, and the games had to suffer as a result of that.
Well, and then on top of that, the industry exploded. Everybody was at home, so they were buying video games and buying microtransactions and just spending a lot of time in your Fortnites, in your Animal Crossings, in your Call of Duties, and so forth. So there was a huge burst of money, and then that bubble inflated until it popped. And it came back down to normal levels, and all of these companies, for whatever reason, greed probably being the driving factor here, decided to capitalize on that as much as they possibly could. And the results of that are thousands of people losing their jobs. This brings us to our new segment that we're going to do probably every week, layoff headcount. That we're doing. These are all 2024 video game layoffs so far. I'm pulling most of this information from Kotaku. They've got a great article up that is being updated throughout the year and keeping count. I'm kind of using that and a number of other sources to kind of keep track of all of this and how it all is going, and keep track as accurately as I possibly can in all of this. But we don't know the full story on each of these situations yet, as you'll see here. But starting from the top of the year, January 8th reported 1,800 layoffs at Unity, 25% of their workforce. January 9th, 500 at Twitch, 35% of their workforce. January 11th, 170 at Discord, 17% of their workforce. 400 at Playtika, 10% of workforce. 45 at PTW, 45 at Behavior Interactive. That's the Dead by Daylight studio, if you're keeping track at home. January 12th, 3 layoffs at Fun Selector. January 15th, 125 at Lost Boys Interactive. That's under Embracer Group. January 16th, 25 at NetSpeak Games. January 17th, 100 at Thunderful, 20% of their workforce. January 17th also had an unknown number at Pixelberry Studios, and 35 at Wemo Games. January 18th, 20 at CI Games, 10% of their workforce. January 18th, less than 10 at 31st Union, less than 10 at Come To Us Studios. January 18th, 70 layoffs at NC Soft. January 19th, 70 at Metaverse World. January 22nd, and this is fresh off the hot presses, happened right before we started recording. 530 people laid off at Riot Games, approximately 11% of their workforce. For those keeping track at home, that is around, possibly more than 3,956 people currently laid off. Of course, that number can't be accurate. There is one studio we don't know the exact numbers of. There's multiple studios we don't know the exact numbers of. One we just straight up don't know at all. And so, aggregates and so forth. But, well over 3,000, pushing 4,000. And we are not even through the first month of the year. And to compare that to last year, the conservative numbers of layoffs last year, which is a landmark of like, oh my God, we're losing so many, was 6,000. That was the conservative number. Now we're pushing more than half of that in the first month.
That's not a good sign, to say the least.
Again, we talk about this week to week. What more can be said? I don't know. If you want our thoughts, we have a breakout episode last week. Go check that one out after the Discord layoffs. And I believe in that same breakout, we also talked about AI, but I could be mistaken. That could be a different one. So yeah, go check that out. YouTube.com/@2pennygames and, share it with some people. Get the word out that this industry is really suffering right now. And it sucks because some of the greatest games ever made are coming out. We just came off of a record year for phenomenal releases last year, and this year also seems to be a great year. We're about to lead into our review for Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Spoilers, I really like it. And there's several other games that are coming out this year that I'm very, very excited for. We started this episode off with talking about the developer _direct, and remember, Xbox faced a lot of layoffs last year as well. Microsoft as an entire entity was somewhere, 10,000 layoffs total? Obviously, not all of that was Xbox. I think Xbox would be gone if that had happened. But
the worst part is that if this crash is coming, which it very much seems like it is, the thing to take away is that a lot of these developers, a lot of these CEOs, who we've in the past blamed as kind of incentivizing layoffs as opposed to pay cuts, because we know a lot of these people make a lot of money. I'm afraid that when you have this big bust of video games companies, you're just going to see the weathering of the storm, and whoever's left, meaning the big heads of these studios, because they're certainly not going to take the brunt of it. They're just going to weather it and then just go back to business as usual. They don't really seem to have any kind of incentives to want to, prevent these kinds of things from happening in the future. And so just keep an eye out and don't let this just go by the wayside and be like, oh, well, that's that. Just, hopefully this doesn't happen again, because that kind of mentality is just going to lead to it inevitably at some point. Further crashes in the games industry.
Agreed. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for episode 183 of the Two Penny Gamescast. But don't go anywhere. We are about to lead right into my review of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Remember, you can get this show every week at youtube.com/@2pennygames, mainstream podcast services of your choice. I forgot at the top of the show, Connor, we're pushing the Final Fantasy VII review. Excuse me. Get on top of it, Tavin. We're pushing the Final Fantasy VII review for the Two Penny Game Club, your monthly video game book club, ahead a little bit, just because the release season is getting a little crazy right now, between Persona 3, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Helldivers 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There's a lot going on right now, so we're pushing that up a week. Me and Phil are pretty much both ready for review. Connor, I believe you probably still have a little. Oh, no. You're about where I am, so you're probably pretty close to ready as well. So next week we are doing that review, as opposed to the first week in February. We're doing it in the last week of January, just because it makes the most sense schedule wise. And Phil being a part of that, he's in the process of moving right now, so his schedule's kind of crazy at the moment. So we just thought, hey, it just makes the most sense to just go ahead and get the jump on this. So make sure you are up to date and ready to talk about Final Fantasy VII, the OG game We will review and rank it amongst the other Game Club entries. I'm very excited for this one, and I hope we get the algorithms right this time, but that's beside the point. Anyways, until next time, have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
It's not beside the point.
What do you mean it's not beside the point?
But, we need to hit those algorithms, Tavin.
Oh, we do? Yeah. It was strategic. All of this is strategic.
Please subscribe if you haven't.
Make sure, please subscribe, like, share, follow, watch all the Game Club reviews. They're really good.
You don't even have to do that. Just subscribe.
Mario 64 should have been higher.
No, it didn't.
What's poppin', players? Welcome back to a 2-penny games review. This time, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I am your lead reviewer and host of this review, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Pleasure to be here. Here to talk about a game that I have not played.
Connor, I'm here. I'm talking to you, my friend, about some Prince of Persia today. And let me tell you what, I'm very, very excited to talk to you about Prince of Persia and The Lost Crown. I feel like this one requires just a touch of backstory to it, because Prince of Persia is a storied franchise with many iterations on that franchise. Obviously started as a 2D side-scroller from old computer days, was reimagined in the PlayStation 2 era, where probably most of its fan base lies, with Prince of Persia and the what is it fucking called? Prince of Persia and the something Sands.
The Forgotten Sands?
Forgotten Sands? It's not Forgotten Sands, is it? Oh my god, this is so embarrassing.
You know what the worst part is?
Sands of Time.
Sands of fucking time.
Sands of Time. That's embarrassing. I, of course, was a big fan of the entire trilogy that took place on PS2, being Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones. Really, really loved all three of those games. Warrior Within was always my personal favorite of the three, even though it got knocked for being edgy and punk rocky and all that stuff. And I get it. The tone is not great for that game, but I loved it as a kid. It was one of my favorite games. Two Thrones also was fantastic as well. I think, but most fans remember Sands of Time very, very fondly. So when the series kind of went askew during the PS3 generation, they kind of could not, find their identity. They couldn't reimagine it or revitalize it in any way that was exciting or anything. So Prince of Persia definitely took a back seat, especially when Assassin's Creed came around and became Ubisoft's golden child during the PS3 generation, and then obviously throughout the entirety of the PS4 generation. In which we never got another Prince of Persia game. So when this game was announced last year, I was shocked that, for one, it was happening, and two, that it looked so good. They, of course, transitioned over into a 2D Metroidvania style of gameplay as opposed to a 3D action-adventure platformer. And we're going to get into all that in a minute. But yeah, all the trailers had me really, really sold. It looked like really fluid combat, really solid, really fun combat, and so forth. And I'll go ahead and I'll jump right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is an amazing game. This game is really, really, really special. If it's not on your radar, absolutely go pick it up and play it right now. 100% worth the time and money. I'm reading runtime is running anywhere from 20 to 25 hours. I'm about 18 hours in, and I do see the end in sight. And I've just had an absolute blast from beginning to end. The game has never ever not been fun to play. And the reason for this is because its combat and its mechanics of just fighting and so forth are so good. They feel so good. Kind of plays a little bit more like a fighting game, sort of like off of directional inputs. You'll push up on the stick and hit square, and you'll knock an enemy into the air. You can hold square, and you'll knock them up and follow them up. Do a bunch of air combos, juggle them around, and so forth. Knock them back down, bounce them off the floor, hit them again, and so forth. Good parries, great parry system in this game. They do a great thing where they do the classic default move that you can parry pretty much any time. The yellow attacks where the enemy will flash yellow and then will go in and attack you. This is what they call a reckless attack. And that is sort of to where you can get a really stylish insta-kill off of the enemy. And they zoom in, have a very cinematic dynamic camera angle with a bunch of flashing colors. And that's a big point for this game is the style. The style in this game is so cool and awesome and fluid, and it's just the nicest little cherry on top of everything to do with this game. As a Metroidvania, I feel a lot of times Metroidvanias can get very confusing. You can get lost in the levels. You don't know where to go. You're just completely screwed on direction. I feel like they do a really good job of always pointing you in the right direction. And they do this thing that I think is really, kind of revolutionary for the genre, where at any point you can press down on the D-pad and basically take a screenshot of wherever you are on screen and whatever is on screen with you. And this will sort of, and then it'll put that screenshot on the map. And this sort of allows you to, is this right? Yeah, I'm sorry. And this sort of allows you to, be able to always remember where certain doors are. So, like for a long time, there was this like cracked yellow wall that I would see everywhere. And I could never figure out what I was supposed to do with these cracked yellow walls. So every time I saw one, I hit down on the D-pad, had my little screenshot of it. It put it on the map. So anytime I opened up the map and I said, wait, what's over in that area? I haven't explored there yet. Oh, but there's a memory shard is what they call them. Let me scroll over, look at that. Oh, right. That's one of the yellow walls. Okay, I don't need to go back that way. Really saves a lot of time, a lot of useless backtracking, a lot of moments where you go, because that's a big problem in Metroidvanias, where you go, what's over there? And you go run over there. You go, oh, right, this shit. Okay, yeah, no, I don't want to be here. And then you go and try and find something, and then you might repeat that cycle because you get lost in the level. Never really happened for me in this game. There's always, they give you just enough direction to where you can kind of find your way through it. There are moments where I go, man, I feel like I've explored everything. And then sure enough, I go, oh no, there's a corner over here I haven't gone. Okay, let me go over there. And then sure enough, that would lead me into the right direction. Let me say, the map in this game is huge. This game is big. Most Metroidvanias, I think, tap out around 8 to 10 hours, maybe 12 to 15. This one being over 20 is crazy. And I'm constantly feeling like, oh my God, there's never an end to some of these levels. They are huge. Specifically, there is a prison section of the map where you're in the prison. That level, I thought I had discovered it all until I knocked down a wall and found I had not even discovered like half of it yet. I still had a whole like 2/3 left to discover in that part of the map. I was blown away. The level design is excellent. It's superb. It is impressively good. The art direction, I think, is fantastic. This really just feels like a great new identity for Prince of Persia, and I really, really hope that we get more from this franchise because of this game. Level design is awesome. It's always fun. The levels are varied. Lots of different environments that you can go through that are all beautiful to look at and really fun to play through. I'll say what is it called? Oh shit, that's broken. The level design is really good, as I said. The puzzles in this game are really inventive and really, really interesting. I went through a section last night. I'm so glad I played through this part before doing this review, where I basically would have to like enter these like little portals, and there was like 4 portals in the room, and I had to enter each individual portal, and it would be a puzzle room in which I would have to interact with a statue, and that statue would basically give me 3 chances to run through the level, and at the end of every, like, it gave me like 10 seconds to go and activate a switch, and then it would revert me back to the beginning of those 10 seconds, and then a ghost of me would go run off and activate the switch, and then so I'd have to use these 2 other clones of myself to get through and achieve the puzzle. It was so well designed. That's the thing about this game, is that from a design perspective, it's perfect. It just knocks it out of the park in every form and fashion. Combat design is awesome. Level design is awesome. Puzzle design is awesome. Art design is phenomenal. Like, they just knock every gameplay element out of the park. A great variety of enemies in this game. Lots and lots and lots of enemies that you can fight. All of them are fun to fight. For the most part, there's 1 or 2, of course, that you're like, oh, fuck, I really don't like fighting these guys. But for the most part, it's a blast to do it. Memorizing combat patterns and, getting those perfect parries off of them, and exploiting their weaknesses and so forth. It's a blast. The boss fights are really cool and inventive and cinematic. I wish they were harder. The game overall is quite punishing. and I think it wears its influences on its sleeve. You see a lot of Dark Souls in this game. You see a lot of obviously classic Metroidvania games like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Celeste has clearly influenced this game in a lot of ways, which is great for the platforming elements of this game are awesome, really, really fun to play through. And it just forms together in just this beautiful pot of game design where you're like, wow, this is just fun to play. I gotta say, my biggest hang up for the game is its story. The story is just kind of there. It's fine. It's a really generic plot, really boring characters, very simple voice acting. Like, there's not a lot of depth in any of the narrative elements of this game. And that extends out to even sort of like the side collectibles, or like sort of, you'll walk around a world and you'll pick up like lore elements, and these will be in the form of like different items or like scrolls or tablets that have been written on and so forth. And all of it's just really basic and boring. Like, I'm never interested to read any of the like letters of people who have gone through this area before. It's just not very well written. Like, it's I guess you could say just like underbaked level of writing. And that's really my biggest hang up of the game, is that the story is just really not that interesting at all. The environmental storytelling's not that great. Yeah,
you called something pretty much in the tutorial mission, and that ended up coming true. It was kind of very predictable.
It was instantly like, as soon as the tutorial mission, I go, all right, well, that guy are going to be problems later, and in these ways. And sure enough, that's exactly how it's been played out so far. So yeah, the story at all is not driving me at all. Sometimes I'm like it's doing that thing where like the text will come up because there's a couple of like really like animated cutscenes and so forth, but most dialogue in this game is two characters looking at each other, and then like text pops up like JRPG style, like a persona or whatever, and their character portrait will be there to text, and then they'll be saying their lines, but I'm reading it faster than the actors are acting it, and so I start skipping their acting because I'm like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. It's not like Mass Effect where you're listening to the entire line being finished before they finish it. Like here I'm just like, I know what's happening. All right, cool, moving on. I've got a couple of small, at this point, nitpicks about the game, one of which is performance-based. I have come across quite a few bugs and glitches in my experience. None of it game-breaking. None of it, like, deterring me from playing it or deterring my fun in any way. There are a couple of times where it seems like the game loses where I am on screen. Like, I'm giving it too many inputs, and so it gets confused as to where I am, and suddenly my character will start teleporting around, and this will cause me to maybe take a hit that I shouldn't be taking, which is really annoying because the game is punishing. I'm playing on not the hardest difficulty, but the one above the normal difficulty. I think they call it heroic or something. And the game is punishing. And so every time you take one or two of these hits, because the game can't keep up with what you're doing, it's really aggravating, because that means life or death in some cases and scenarios. Another thing, you can see it right here in the B-roll right here, this little flame character that I'm talking to. The game is being dinged for this. This character doesn't have a voice actor. They've instead gone with an AI text-to-speech voice for it for some reason. It's only this one character. The story is that they forgot to put an actor in that role. Like, they just forgot. I don't know how much I buy that. But yeah, it is distracting. As soon as I came across this character, I go, why are they talking like this? And then I went online and saw that this AI thing was happening. I went, oh no, yeah, it's this character. It's so clearly this character. It sounds like Siri's talking to you, and Siri's just a little sad. Mm-hmm. And so I've got some personal gripes and issues with that. It is really, really disturbing. See, the enemies in this area are awesome. The not the bug flying around right now, but you'll see like guys on four legs crawling after me, and they look like xenomorphs from the Alien movies. They've even got like little like, it's not a jaw within a jaw, it's a long pointy tongue.
Yeah, proboscis.
They open it up and thrust it at you and so forth. They're aliens, like, from that. So like I was running through this part of the level and I was like, this is cool and fun.
Yeah, there they are. Yeah, the enemy design, just on how it was looking when I was watching you play the game and through this footage, you could just tell they're fun to fight.
Oh yeah.
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 Enemy design in games is a really good indicator of how cool they are to fight. And when you have one that are hitting as much as this one seems to be, it makes sense that's one of the high points of it.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to a bit of one of my nitpicks here is that the traversing the levels are harder than the boss fights. There are moments in each level where like it's like, man, I don't know how I'm supposed to be able to get through this without dying or something like that. Or man, this is a big blockade in the way, because it works kind of like Dark Souls, where you have these walk trees, which are your replacements for bonfires, essentially, where you run up, you get healed, but I think enemies will respawn every time you touch a walk tree.
Probably.
That's what it feels like. And you know, you get your health potions back and restock on arrows and all this stuff. So like when I'm like running and trying to get somewhere and these trees are kind of, you know, spaced out pretty far or something, it can get really frustrating when I'm running in a direction and I'm trying to navigate this level, but these enemies keep killing me at the same time because they're really hard to like fight through or avoid or get past. You do end up just kind of like, you'll fight them on your first way through, and then every time after that, you'll just run past them. But still, it's like, why is that the most difficult part of the game? On top of difficult platforming. The platforming will challenge you, which is great. I love that. But in combination with how hard the combat is when you get swarmed by 3 or 4 enemies at once, it can be a little frustrating at times. And then when you get to the boss fights, they're not as difficult. Like, they don't feel like big moments because they're just not as tough as some of the levels in this game.
And from what you told me before, this one just allows you to challenge boss fights, right? Instead of having to go all the way back, you can just redo it.
Yeah. If you die in a boss fight, you just respawn right there and start the fight again. You do have the option to go back to one of your walk trees. But, you know, more like, I've never felt the need to go respec or go figure out something with my build to go do that. I've always felt like if I die in a boss, it's just because, it's just because I'm still learning their combat patterns, and they just happened to pull out a move that I didn't know they had and killed me with that or whatever.
Yeah, based off how you're talking, it seems like they really had a nice idea with being able to do that and cut out the traversal, especially with one that has, you know, difficult traversal and getting through up to the boss fights. You would think they'd capitalize on that by making the boss fights more difficult, but I guess they just failed to do that.
Yeah.
First game.
I mean, it's a balance thing. I mean, them being easier allows the fight to be more cinematic. So, you know, they'll move the camera around, they'll do cool things in the background and so forth. And like all of that is appreciated, or like they'll have like the cool style happening as you do it or whatever. And all of that is appreciated. But I wish we could find a better balance here, because I would have really liked the boss fights to be like, oh man, when I fought the witch in the woods, man, that fight was crazy. And, you know, that was a tougher fight than some of the other ones, but overall it was just kind of fine. A lot of the mini bosses are just giant beasts, and you're like, all right, well, let me take out this boar, I guess, or let me take out this big crab, sure. And then you beat it, and you're like, all right, I'm done with that. That was a fight. And then, you know, and then you'll walk into the next room, and the doors will lock, and 4 really tough enemies will spawn, and you got to fight your way through those, and those are tough fights. The toughest fight I had was last night in the prison level. There's a jail warden character who's pretty difficult to fight, and he's only difficult because it's him in combination with other normal enemy types that he brings into the fight and so forth. That's what made it difficult. So there's that. I will say, I like Metroidvanias. I've played around in the genre a couple of times. Usually I get about, 60 to 70% of the way through, and then I get lost and then frustrated and put it down and walk away. But I always enjoy my time through up to that point where I get lost and confused. That's not happening here. I fully intend to, one, finish my playthrough, but also I fully intend to platinum this game, because it's just that fun to move around the world. It's just that fun to fight in this world. The levels are varied enough. There's enough different enemy variants throughout your adventure where it's just never boring. Like, it's just always fun to run around, even if you're like retreading and backtracking all the time. Like, you're always having a blast. Like, the game just feels great to play. Which is what's carrying it so far up up my personal ranking. Like this is a very special game. It's going to be hard pressed to not be in my top 3 by the end of the year. Will it be my number 1? I doubt it. There's a couple of games, notably Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, on the horizon that I'm pretty sure are going to surpass this one. But yeah, I'm really, really in love with this game. I think it's phenomenal, and everybody should go play it. One small thing, it being a Metroidvania game, I wish there was a mini map. You know, it being a Metroidvania, you're pulling up your map a lot because you go, all right, where am I going now? Okay, I gotta go up, left, hang around, and then drop down and do that. And then, sure enough, you get to your next intersection. You go, fuck, which way do I go? Or like, is this the right up? Or am I taking the right turn here? Do I need to skip this turn and go ahead? And you'll open your map back up and you go, oh no, I need to go ahead. Or oh no, I missed it. This, that. So it's just like, well, this could have been avoided with a little bit of a mini map. I also wish the map was a little more detailed. I understand like when you pull out like and see the whole thing, you don't have to be so detailed there. But you know, some of these rooms that you're in are huge and complex. And it would be nice that like as I traverse my way through it, there was a way to mark the different platforms, so like then I could zoom in on a room and be like, okay, this is how you tackled this room or so forth. Because sometimes I enter a room and I go, like it's a room that I haven't been in 6 hours of gameplay, and I go, all right, how do I get through this room again? And I open the map and I go, it's just a blank square, like it's just a big square. So like I have to refigure out how to get through this room that I've already figured out how to get through. And that's never as fun the second, third, fourth time around. So I just wish there was like a little bit of mini-map that would give me a little bit more detail on the map so that I could figure out when I'm supposed to turn, when I'm on long treks to travel across the entire map, or when I get stuck in one of the bigger rooms that are really complex and so forth. Just a small little nitpick, a wish that was there. Again, the memory shard mechanic totally like fixes 90% of my hangups with this genre. Not that I have a lot. I love Metroidvanias. I love playing them, but I rarely ever beat them. And the memory shard mechanic totally fixes that. There's no way I'm not beating this game. I mean, again, man, the style, the combat, the level design, the puzzles, all of these are so good. I just wish the story was a little bit better.
Small issue with Metroidvanias where that gameplay loop is really what you're trying to get sold on.
Yeah, but there's examples of good stories in Metroidvanias. I think Axiom Verge had a good story. The first one, at least, had a good story to it, but I got lost and never beat that game. Metroid Dread's story was fine. Like, it was good. It was better than this. It's just like, you're just kind of playing it or whatever, and you go, all right, yeah, this character, that character, cool, whatever. But its big moments, its big cinematic moments are really well directed and have great style to them, and so forth. And so, yeah, I fully 100% recommend Prince of Persia to anybody who loves great combat, great level design, good puzzles, like it's just great overall game feel and game design are at 100% here. The story is whatever. But like that's not why you should play this game. You should play this game because it feels great to play. The combat is satisfying, and like it really is just never boring, which is something that I'm shocked by because there's always a boring segment of every video game, right? I've not come across that moment in this game. Like it's just always a blast.
The perks of strong gameplay.
Indeed. Connor, where are you at with this, man? You gonna pick it up?
If I have time later on, but I'm not like drawn to it specifically. So I'm gonna do this the next time I play a game that you're not going to play that I say is
Connor,
good.
you would genuinely really like this game.
No, I know I would. It's not a matter of would I not like it. It's am I or am I not going to play it.
You should play it. I fully recommend this game to you specifically. You would really enjoy it. The combat would get you.
Yeah, I bet it would.
Good sound effects, good sound design. That's something else I haven't really talked about now that I'm looking at it in the B-roll here. You have this necklace of amulets. This is this reminds me a lot of the materia system from Final Fantasy VII, where that's a bad example actually. Each of these amulets kind of give you like a pro or like a little like benefit in combat or something. Like one gives you like an extra bar of health. One There's one of my favorites is every time you successfully parry, you get some health back. Some of them apply more stun to an enemy. You have these heavy attacks called Athra energy attacks. As you're fighting, you're building up this Athra energy, and you can build up to like 2 levels of it, a level 1 and a level 2. Every time you build up to a bar, you acquire that bar. But in the process of building, if you like start taking hits and damage, you'll start losing the energy in that. You can apply different amulets that will decrease the amount of energy you lose, or make it build a little faster and stuff like that. There's a bunch of amulets that do a bunch of different things. My thing about it is that you have so few amulet slots, and some amulets cost multiple slots to put on, that I feel like I'm wasting a lot of these amulets. I feel like they're going unused in my inventory. I'm not playing with my build enough, either because they take up too many slots, either because I don't have enough slots, something there. Like, I just don't feel incentivized to experiment with them. I kind of found the ones I liked and set them and forget about them. I kind of wish they were more fun to experiment with and play around with. A lot of them just kind of end up feeling like they're going to the wayside and that I'm not using them in any way that I should, or so forth. I think I have like over 20 amulets right now, and I've been using the same 4 for the majority of my playthrough.
A system that I think would be a good comparable thing is Elden Ring's talisman system, where you have certain effects that change depending on which talisman you have. They affect certain types of builds and whatnot. It's a good system to have.
It is. I'm glad it's here. It's just like, it just needs a little bit more tweaking to like be more effective and useful.
Yeah. And like I said, this is the first game and what's potentially, going to be a thing Ubisoft's going to do. I mean, we know Ubisoft; they're always grabbing that money, and this seemed to do well, especially review-wise.
We'll see, man. I hope it does well. Like, genuinely, go out and support this game, because it's only, I think it's a $50 game, 25 hours. Like, that's longer than some single-player, full-price narrative games. That's arguably longer than Spider-Man 2. And clearly this game was working on a smaller budget than Spider-Man 2, but it's absolutely worth your time and money in it. And I'm really, really impressed that Ubisoft put this game out. I was shocked to see the return of this IP. I thought Prince of Persia was long dead, and it's back in better form than it ever was in the PS2 generation. This is probably my favorite Prince of Persia game now. Like, it is fucking good.
You save that until you go back and you get that edge in your system. And one day
that hard rock plays as I have sex with a woman in red dress or something like that.
This sounds bad. People didn't like that one? What losers. Yeah. I guarantee you they're losers now. They were just scum of the earth.
It is what it is. But here's one of those. It gets kind of blocked off or whatever. But yeah, that was one of those reckless kills. They didn't see it because I just switched camera angles or so forth. But
don't worry, you didn't miss out on much.
Yeah, they're part of the environment blocked it. But yeah, fuck, I'm gonna play more of this game right now.
Well,
and now because of your bitch ass, I gotta put it down and go finish my Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, that's fine.
No, it's not fine, Connor. I want to play Prince of Persia.
That's fine. You're not going to, because the reasons you just laid out.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know how you felt about Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown down in the comments below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Get that algorithm working for us. We really do appreciate it. Let me know if you're going to play Prince of Persia, if it's on your list, if this review inspired you to check it out at all. I hope it did. Please go support this game. Excuse me. Please go support this game and show Ubisoft that we want more things like this and not, the typical sludge that they've been putting out for the last couple of years. This is a great direction for this franchise. This is a great direction for Ubisoft as a whole. And I really, really hope we see more from this new iteration of the game. I love it. It's amazing. Go play it. Until next time, y'all have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Yeah, goodbye. See you next week.